But here's the thing. Judd Legum, who is the chief writer, editor, owner, publisher of Popular Information at Substack.com. Popular Information. I've been talking about this guy and what he writes about. It's really, really good investigative work. But anyway, he's talking this time about how this Nazi governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, has proposed legislation to the Christian fascist legislature of Florida that would let parents sue teachers who tell the truth about U.S. history. DeSantis has proposed something that he calls the Stop Woke Act. Now, it's being presented as an effort to ban critical race theory and so-called woke indoctrination in Florida schools. But in reality, as Judd points out, the legislation would allow parents to sue teachers who provide accurate information about the founding of this country. According to DeSantis, the so-called Stop Woke Act will codify, quote, the Florida Department of Education's prohibition on teaching critical race theory in K-12 schools, end quote. Now, that regulation, which was put in place back in June, does ban, quote, the teaching of critical race theory, end quote, which the average white person in America couldn't tell you what the hell it means. But this regulation goes much further. This prohibits teachers from defining, quote, American history as something other than the creation of a new nation based largely on universal principles stated in the Declaration of Independence, end quote. Now, I'll pause so that my black brothers and sisters and cousins in this country can have a hearty laugh. Go ahead, y'all. 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, that's enough. It prohibits teachers in Florida from defining American history as something other than the creation of a new nation based largely on universal principles stated in the Declaration of Independence. Oh, for Christ's sake. In other words, teachers are going to be required to lie to their students. This is how far this has gone. This is where we are. Truth seekers, I mean, you remember at the creation of this country, the principles stated in the Declaration were not universal. We're not universal. Jesus. In fact, most African Americans were considered the property of white men and had no rights. But never mind, we're supposed to ignore that. And that would persist for more than a century. White women and Native Americans were also not afforded these so-called universal rights. We hold these truths to be self-evident. Bullshit. Now, candidly discussing those facts with students in a classroom is not critical race theory, but it's still prohibited under Florida regulations. I mean, how? I know you're tired of hearing me say this, but how close are we to the ministry of truth? To Orwell's Winston Smith, who takes reality and flushes it down the memory hole. It's gone. It never existed. There's no record of it. This is what the Christian fascists are trying to do. And Ron DeSantis is in the lead of these fascist Christians who are trying to do this. DeSantis's proposal would take things even further. It would give students and parents a so-called private right of action, which would allow them to sue any teacher who does not tell them that America was created, quote, largely on universal principles. No, the fuck it wasn't. It was created on exclusive principles. White, male landowners. Black folk weren't even considered fully human. And under this new legislation, if it were to pass, the people who would file the suits against teachers would collect attorney's fees and damages from teachers if they win. What damages? When did teaching the truth constitute damages? I'll tell you when. When fascist Christians decided to take control, and in so many states they have. So here you are. We've been talking about this. I've been talking about this for 10 goddamn years, and here it is. Here it is. The structure of what DeSantis is proposing is modeled after that Texas abortion bill, which allows citizens to sue anyone they believe may have helped a woman violate the state's new abortion ban. So in Florida, if this passes, and the mere fact that it's been proposed by the governor should hit your vomit button. But if it passes, teachers will be forced to choose between lying to their students about the founding of this country or face costly litigation. I mean, oh, Mike. You're so funny. You just rail and rant and rave against shit that you have no control over whatsoever. Oops, here I am talking to myself again. Anyway, DeSantis was clear that the purpose of his legislative proposal is to impose fear in teachers. This is what DeSantis said, quote, "A lot of times these people will fear lawsuits more than a fine from the State Department of Education, because when you do a lawsuit, you get discovery." End quote. Which means you have to have an attorney to defend you, which is a tremendous amount of money. Anyway, the regulation also prohibits the use of any, quote, material from the 1619 Project, end quote. That was that project published by the New York Times a couple of years ago that explores the origins of slavery in the United States and how the legacy of slavery shaped what we have to deal with today. See, the Christian fascist white male power structure will do anything it can to prevent people from knowing about that. Oh, my God. But this is where we are. This is where we are. I don't know. Sometimes I just wonder, when did I fall asleep? When did I do a Rip Van Winkle and fall asleep and wake up to this? I mean, how did this happen? You know what I mean? I don't know. I just have to. I just have to stop sometimes, and let some of this stuff percolate. And try to figure out what to do next, what to say next, what to think next. And I'm not talking about in the podcast world. I'm talking about inside my own head. You ever feel that way? No, really. Do you? Do you ever stop and you think, what the fuck has happened? But this was all incremental. We had warnings about this if we were paying attention over the past 40 years, little incremental movements toward eliminating democratic self-rule and replacing it with fascistic Christian theocracy. We've had warnings all along this 40-year road. Signposts, warnings, flashing neon. And we decided to ignore. Oh, it can't be that serious. Can't be that serious. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcast. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.